It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Welcome to another episode of Wednesday Toast, a podcast about comic book stuff where Simon and I get together every week and we talk about comic book stuff. This is technically the first episode. We did sort of an introductory episode, but this is the first episode, so give us a break. We don't know what we're doing. Ignore the 200 episodes of the old show. That's not what this is.
Never have, never will know what we're doing.
Different show, same host. I mean, how the hell are you?
Same toast. You know what I'm saying? we rippity rapping over here. Yeah, man, things are good. I've been crafting it up the last couple of days.
I like that.
Last couple of weeks.
Do you record any B-roll of you?
No, bro. Not everything is content.
I mean, you are a content creator and you're creating, so you.
I should.
Those things kind of go hand in hand.
I should, but the problem is, like, I do things little by little. Like, I have to wait for paint for dry, whatever. And I also just kind of, for example, I just make shit out of nothing. So the dial I was working on earlier I wanted to put some groibles on there. And I wanted to put some wire. Well, I didn't want to go buy some wire, and I went looking through a closet and I found some old speaker wire. So I'm like cutting that, and I take that outside and I spray paint it, and I have to wait for that. So I look like I'm having a manic episode because I just wander around the house looking for shit that I can stick on this thing. I went out. I wanted some greenery for one of my other diodes, and our neighbor planted some bamboo, and it encroached into my yard. So I went out there and cut that shit down and split it up into like foot-long pieces, you know.
Take that, neighbor.
For my Japanese stuff. So I don't know if it would be more entertaining, I think, if someone was following me around than me just like, I'm going over here and I'm going over here.
Like doing a voiceover as if someone was watching you for like a National Geographic.
Yeah.
Very monotone.
Because
here is Simon and his natural habitat.
Yeah. It's I don't know, man. And then I'm playing a video game and Nicole's talking to me about whatever, I pause it and then I just like leave because I had an idea. And so I just walked out and she's like, "Are you done with this?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm in here painting stuff."
Creative mind. It's a wonder.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I can't wait till you're like just really in the zone. I can't wait to be around you and watch you in the zone and be like, yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Oh man. Yeah, it's fun because it reminds me of like days in art school. Those days were it was just cool to be like in the zone creating stuff. And now with like cutting the foam up and gluing it and like trying to make it look like something, I don't know. It brings me back to that because it's not just like digital art. People don't respect that. People don't respect toy photography, but hey, I made this out of foam and it looks like a little building.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. It's cool if you ask me. You know what else is cool? Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, man.
Happy Valentine's.
I know it's not while we're recording this, but this episode will be releasing on Valentine's Day. It is the Wednesday Pull List Valentine's Day special. Read, laugh,
Can we play
love.
I love that. We need some of that like a harp sound.
Do. On this week's episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about some of the best couples in comic books, some of the worst couples in comic books, and why we think that. We also had some friends on the internet give us some of their thoughts on who they thought were the best, and I'm excited to talk about this with you. This is a new format, like I mentioned. We're still trying to find our bearings, but I'm excited because I had a lot of fun with the last one, episode 0. Call it. Mm-hmm. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to be here and be talking about love with I was going to say lover, but sexual life partner, Simon.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Before we get into it, do you like Valentine's Day? Are you a Valentine's Day hopeless romantic?
No, I've always abhorred Valentine's Day. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
It's made up,
Everything's made up, man.
By big greeting card and big chocolate and big greeting card. Yeah. And for most of it, I was like the hopeless romantic. Like, why am I always single? always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
And then you realize that you have to do stuff on Valentine's Day, and you're like, ugh, never mind.
Oh, I am the worst. I'm the worst about it because I don't know. My wife, I mean, she loves the surprise of flowers, but she's also like, they're also going to die.
Yeah.
Like, she's realistic about it. So, anyway, I'm always like, I can do better than that. And then I don't do better than that every year.
Yeah, I've been married for a while.
Every year
I've fallen into the same thing. I was like,
Every year it's a panic for Christmas, birthday, and Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, it's again. It's happening again.
Yeah. Just buy 2 gifts every year, and then you're at least safe for the next year. You're like, I buy this one for now, and then I'll put this one in the closet for next year.
Smart. That's a good idea.
Save future Simon some grief.
That's a business idea there. The two gift shopping.
Oh man. All right, let's get into it, man. Best comic book couples. I don't know what your criteria is for best comic book couples. And this can be anything. This could be from, if it's in the movies, a version of a relationship that's in the games. We have, because Spider-Man and Mary Jane in the comic books is different than Spider-Man and Mary Jane in the Insomniac game. So whatever you want to take. I picked some that I had thought of, and I'm going to start. Feel free to take from this list. It's just a list of names. I'm going to start, though, with Superman and Lois Lane.
Boo.
I think that when you think about iconic comic book couples, you got to go Superman and Lois Lane. A classic.
Yeah, that was actually one of my choices as well. One of the few that I could really think of. Mm-hmm. Mainly because I like them as a couple, but one of the things I really love in any fiction, but especially like the animated one, the animated series, the Bruce Timm one, mm-hmm. is like how strong and like feisty Lois is. Yeah. I mean, that's the one that I'm pointing at, but they really all are like that, except for, the Snyderverse. She's independent, but kind of.
I don't know. She always seemed like sad. She just seemed sad all the time.
Yeah. That's why they picked a good actress, because she was ready to cry at any moment. But yeah, I really think that's a pretty interesting dynamic, and I dig like how independent they are individually. Almost like she's the hero, mm-hmm. and he's like the side character when they're together. Yeah,
they really did that. That's a good point. They really honed in on that in the old Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Like, she's such a important character to those movies, and it's obviously it's about Superman, duh. But you have to have a character like that, because Superman can do everything, and it's silly. He can do everything. He doesn't need anybody, really.
Yeah, but he barely has.
Go ahead.
He barely has personality. Yeah. Like, he's this like everything.
Yeah, and he's like this dopey idiot around her, and so it makes his character better. So you almost need the two of them. I really love the moments in their relationship before they get, like, they are great married. It's cool. It's fine. But I almost prefer their relationship when they're just dating and he's still pretending, even though she has to know that he's Superman because she works with him every day, and then she's in love with this dude that looks just like him, except he's not a nerd.
Also, like, how do you not know that this guy has a super dong?
It's also like, yeah, he's a dork, right? Clark Kent's a dork. We get it. He plays a bumbling idiot. Not idiot, but he plays a dorky dude. But he's also kind of buff. Like, he's 6'5". He has a chiseled jaw. It's like there's something more to this dude.
You take his shirt off and it's like, okay, you're not as dumpy as you look.
And I know they say, I think that's like, Frank Quietly did the best illustration of him being hunched over, but also, still.
I was about to bring that up. Yeah. He's hunched over until you take off the shirt and you're like, he still has like a 12-pack.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I don't know. I think when it comes to comic book relations, when it comes to comic book couples, Superman and Lois, or it's like Superman. He's the archetype, he's the perfect superhero. Mm-hmm. So I think their relationship is, and I agree with you. I love Lois Lane. I love usually how she's characterized. And so that was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Who else did you think of?
Well, obviously Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah, such a good one. It's such a good one, and I can't believe that I didn't think of that at all. There was specifically, I don't know how much of the Injustice storyline you read from the comic books, but they alluded to that actually being a relationship. You know, it's funny because we talk about them. They're such close friends. They honestly remind me of us, like our friendship. And not, I have feelings for you. This is the whole episode. This is not even a real episode. This is me. This is
this recording. This is fake.
It reminds me of a lot of. But in the Injustice storyline, Blue Beetle's getting hunted by the Suicide Squad, if I remember correctly. Maybe that's the inspiration for the game that everyone's loving right now on the internet. But Booster Gold is watching, and he can't do anything about it because he can't interfere with time. And I think it's been a while since I've read it, but as Blue Beetle's dying, Booster Gold shows up, and he's like, of course, I'm going to be with you at the end. And they like hug each other, but not like a bro hug, like a pelvis to pelvis. Their pelvises were touching kind of hug. So yeah, Booster Gold, at the very least, great bromance, best bromance in comic books without a doubt. But yeah, I would accept that as best comic couple.
Yeah, beautiful. Definitely. I've been trying to think of one. It was I also thought Booster Gold and himself. Yeah. that was another one, but only because I was trying to think of another character that's like pretty self-absorbed, and I couldn't really think of one off the top of my head. But yeah, I really, I think a good bromance is needed in comic books. Yeah. I mean, you could say the same thing about what is it, John Kent? Like that, I loved that coupling when we were reading that, just because it pissed everybody off. Yeah, but it was so innocent, and it's just a thing, Yeah,
it doesn't actually change the character at all.
No,
if you think about it,
it doesn't.
I mean, for some people, it does in a dramatic way, I guess.
Yeah. How dare they?
Like, why do you care who these imaginary characters have sex with?
Yeah.
Is that why you're buying those books? Is like, I buy Superboy because he has sex with girls.
I mean, some of those books, yes, they are buying them for that reason.
That's so bizarre. Oh man. This is a
Vampirilla.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Or you remember Lady Death? Do you remember that character? She's like all white. She always wore like a scantily clad bikini, white hair.
Yeah, I kind of do remember it.
Yeah, she's one of those characters that they bought because of probably her character development. This is a pick that probably a lot of people wouldn't have on, but this is specifically for me. But Frank, Madman, Einstein, and Joe Lombard. Now, you got a little bit of this because on our old show we reviewed a silly book called Superman, Madman, Hullabaloo. But there, if you read the original issues, when Frank Einstein was first introduced, he is this, the background where he was in a car accident and these two weird scientists brought him back to life, and he has all these wacky powers because of it. But before he became the superhero Madman, he was just like this Frankenstein character. He had this hodgepodge face and he looked grotesque. And he met this girl, Jo, and she just loved him for who he was, even though it was like the typical someone falling in love with Frankenstein's monster, which I don't know if that's a typical story, but I'm gonna write
that old story.
I'm gonna write that down. We're gonna sell that to Zack Snyder. But I just love their relationship because she's just they're head over heels in love with each other, and it's that love isn't a surface level thing. It's really about what's on the inside, and we don't really get a lot of that in comic books. Lois Lane, Superman, they're both super hot, of course. Neither one of them are busted. It's not, it's not like Superman has like a lazy eye or something or overbite. So
he should though.
He should. Why does he have to be perfect? Because he's from outer space. He shouldn't even look like a human. Honestly, he should have like a third arm, not that one.
Yeah, maybe he has a corkscrew penis, like a hedgehog or whatever,
like a pigtail.
A pig.
Yeah. So Frank or Madman and Joe, that's probably my favorite comic book couple because it's one that hasn't been tested. A trope in comic books, you always have to have the dramatic effect of breaking up the relationship, as in Spider-Man and Mary Jane with One More Day, and various times throughout history, and Batman and Catwoman. They're never going to be together. You always have to have that strain, and this is one time that they just don't do it. It's just unnecessary. And it deals with, the wacky world of Madman. They don't have those kind of heavy overtones. But I like that. Sometimes it's nice to have. You don't always need the sadness.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, actually. You do see like that being, it's okay for love not to be love or relationships to not be the major theming. And I feel like Superman and Lois kind of does this too. It's like not the major theming of their relationship,
Yeah.
like, or the comic book or anything like that exists. That's not going to be messed with. We're here. The main problems are these other things. Like
Yeah.
that's what's testing. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime they mess with their relationship, Lois and Superman, it's like Superman died.
Yeah, he did.
He's dead for right now. He might be back, maybe not, or he's electric now.
Yeah, he's gonna come back with goatee.
That's something they haven't done yet.
Long hair.
I'm gonna write that down. Making all these notes today. Did you think of any other characters, man, that you would think best couples? I mean, there's a lot of like weird couples.
I kind of like, and I can't remember. I'm terrible with like the names of it, but like the Rocketeer and Betty, right?
Oh yeah.
I've always liked that because what I find really funny about that character is in my mind I was like, this is a serialized character. He's been around since the 40s. No, he was made in the 80s or maybe late 70s. Like he's a newer ish character and like had one little run at the time.
Had a crappy movie,
and then that movie is excellent.
I like it.
Watch your fucking tongue.
I like it. But man, I got through. I watched it a few months ago, and I was halfway through, and I was like, should have never rewatched it, man. I should have kept it how it was.
I think it holds up, but there are some parts that don't.
It definitely holds up. But you get what I'm saying. It's like you have this image of certain movies in your head, and you're like, oh my god, it's perfect, and then you watch it, and you're like, maybe it's not perfect.
Yeah. There's several from that era that are like that. Me and Nicole watched Waiting today, and I was like, this movie's pretty problematic.
Yeah. The Mask.
It's like they use the
Mask.
They use the F slur way too much.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched Waiting in a long time. Maybe I don't think I will. Yeah.
It's still kind of funny. Yeah. I mean, it's like that early 2000s. I mean, it's stupid, but
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I really like their relationship. I think it's kind of cool because it's really old school, but she's like a fox, it's not the same kind of like, I guess like 40s, 50s style relationship to where like he's trying to woo her and do all these things like, nah, man,
and she's a damsel
also independent. Usually. Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of an honorable mention, I guess, for me.
And I have two back to back, and then I have an honorable mention that I think we can actually talk about. Big Barda Mister Miracle. I love just I talk about Jack Kirby a lot and how much I love his version and his idea of comic books. And these characters are new gods, and they're just silly, but they have serious tones to them. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Miracle looks ridiculous. Giant, the guy collar, and he flies around on this hoverboard, but it's just like 2 disc, and he can escape anything. And Big Barda,
weird thing.
Yeah, Big Barda is this giant woman. She's not an Amazon. She's just this badass woman, and maybe that's a thing. I know that's a thing of
That's where you got it.
That's
where it started.
I know that's my type. But I love their relationship, and the Mr. Miracle book that I think we will read. I talked about us reviewing books every now and then. And one of the reasons why we never reviewed Mr. Miracle on our old show is because it's 12 issues. It wasn't broken up into volumes. It's just one book, 12 issues. And so it's like, that's a lot to review in our old format. So maybe one of these days we'll get through it over time, and then we'll just talk about the whole thing rather than like issue 1, you know what I mean? How we used to do. But I love their relationship because I think finding love in any sense of the weird, like new gods and apocalypse and all of that crazy shit to find a actual relationship in that would be crazy.
Yeah, for sure. See, I don't know much about her, about them at all, but I've always kind of loved the Kirby parts of like the cosmic stuff, like in both. I think he really got a chance to run wild with it in DC. So
yeah, I agree. New Gods was just ahead of its time, and I think it's still ahead of it. It's just like so out there. I don't want to use like high art because it's we're talking about comic books, but it's just like a very like you said, he just was. They just said, "Hey, just do whatever you want, man. We actually do not care. We're just going to print it. We're not even going to send it to the editor. We're just going to print it." And he just went wild with it, and it worked. They still use most of the stuff that he came up with.
Yeah, I've always thought it's funny when they bring those characters into animated shows. Like they brought some of them into Young Justice, I think, and some of them into
a lot of them.
Pretty much anything. Because did he come up with Darkseid?
Darkseid's
like that
he's a new guy. Yeah, and they had the weird thing where they switched sons. Orion is his son. It's like a weird thing because Calabac is his son on Apocalypse, but it's like not really his son. They traded sons at birth as a peace treaty.
Yeah,
but he looks
the one that looks like a wolf.
Yeah, he looks like a monster, and Orion's his handsome redhead. It's weird,
That's,
man.
Nurture over nature.
Yeah,
is what happened.
Yeah, they're like, we'll take this one. Yeah, you can have the one that looks.
But how does an avatar have a son?
That's why he has an avatar, because he didn't have a penis. It is like high concept for him.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's just made out of rocks. I don't know.
Solid choice.
Also, another one, switching back over to the Marvel side of things, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, right? Purely nothing to do with the show. I really didn't like the show version of them, mainly because they didn't really dive into that relationship at all. They just kind of like broke a bed, and that was really it. And they're like, all right, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
We kind of, danced on it, but we're not going to go deep into it. They have a strong relationship in the comic books. They have a kid. The kid eventually grows up to be a Captain America in the future. It's like very cool stuff, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, this is great panel. I have to send it to you where she's fighting someone, loses the shield, and they're like, what are you going to do without your shield? And she's like, my dad is Luke Cage. I am the shield, because she's like bulletproof. I'm like, ooh, goosebumps. One of those silly comic book things. It's like,
yeah, but that is cool.
Like, that's great. Every now and then there's a comic book moment where I'm like, yeah, comic books are cool. And
yeah, somebody wrote that.
Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, for the sole reason that I would not give a shit about either one of those characters, like in any other aspect. Like them because I think she has a really good storyline through like the Alias books, Jessica Jones, whatever it's called, with the whole Power Man and that whole storyline. And then he has good stuff with Danny Rand, but also for me, it's those, I'll read them. If I see it at the library, I'll pick it up, or, if I can read it on the app. But I know that the relationship is good just because they were pretty important in the Mighty Avengers, New Avengers, that whole era of like Siege, Dark Avengers. I don't know if you remember that era. They were highlighted a few times in that, and I just thought it was really good. And it goes back to the same thing they were talking about with Frank Einstein and Superman and Lois. It's like those relationships that's just it. They're just in a relationship. It's not the focus of the story. They are superheroes. They are married, but it's not like it's always tested and it's always on the line with the story. And I just appreciate that. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're married. Who cares? It's not. I don't have to make a deal with the devil. He doesn't give a shit about me being married. God. Honorable mention, as we talk about making deals with the devil, Peter Parker and Mary Jane. One of the classic comic book couples. It's like we grew up reading comic books. They were married when we were kids. And then they had this pretty controversial book, One More Day, where Aunt May gets killed. Even though she's 90 years old, he makes a deal.
Yeah, just like, you're old, bitch.
He makes a deal with the devil, Mephisto, to bring her back. And all he wants.
That should be the actual couple right there, is Aunt May and Peter Parker.
Yeah, right. Someone I put out there online, like, hey, send us some of your choices. And someone actually put Aunt May and Peter Parker, and I was like,
only on Pornhub right now. There's lots of those.
We'll cover that relationship on our OnlyFans Wednesday.
But you can't hear us because all the fans. It's too loud.
It's just us in like a fan shop doing the regular podcast. I don't know. Peter Parker's a weird character because Marvel editorial, they love to focus on the Parker luck. They like to focus on him being down in the dumps, and anytime he's doing good, they have to knock him down. And like that's like part of his character, right? And so he can't be married. You know, he can't have kids. He just has to be depressed all the time, which I guess they think it's relatable because nerds read comic books.
I mean, I'm depressed a lot. I get it.
Yeah.
I think it's less about it's less about just being depressed and more about like how he makes his way out of it no matter what.
Or he
resilient.
continues to be Spider-Man even though his life sucks. Most people would be like, why would I be fuck that? I'm going to go be a wrestler and beat up Bonesaw and get paid $3,000 a week. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Does your boyfriend know? Did your boyfriend pick it out for you? That's a good comic book. Bonesaw and whatever boyfriend.
Yeah. But I just think it's weird because I love the weird era of Marvel, MC2, Spider-Girl, like the legacy characters. And Pete and Mary Jane are married in that and they have kids. And I just think something like that can work. And I know that comic books don't like to do that. They like to keep it. Peter Parker's going to be 29 question mark. There's no specific age.
Forever.
Yeah. But it's an honorable mention because they're not married right now. Mary Jane's with this weird dude named Paul. And they had 2 kids together. But they disappeared because they weren't real kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Pete was with Pete was with Black Cat, which I think he should just stay with Black Cat. But
yeah, that was another honorable mention.
Yeah, she broke up
like Spider-Man and Black Cat.
Yeah, she broke up with him recently because he's still in love with MJ. Same old story, man. Mary Jane should just get with Ben Reilly.
There you go.
The cool Peter Parker.
That makes a lot of sense too.
I don't know. Honorable mention because I love Peter Parker. You know, I like Mary Jane. We'll see.
Yeah, I like him too. I mean, I don't know.
They just did a relaunch of the Ultimate Universe with Spider-Man. You got to read that first issue.
With Ted Kaczynski, Spider-Man.
You got to read the first issue. It's pretty good. And Pete and MJ are married in that. So people are going crazy about it because the fans want them to be married for some reason. I think it gives them hope that one day a girl will talk to them.
I would rather them be married than like whatever, like perpetually dating or whatever the shit that they do.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, man. It just let it happen and let it be just in the background, kind of like it was in the 90s. They were married. Who cares? It's not always some weird plot where they're like, well, Green Goblin's going to throw her off the Golden Gate Bridge, whatever he's going to do.
Yeah, right. Convoluted.
Yeah. Those are some of the best and worst, or those are some of the best comic book couples that we have. You guys have to let us know if we missed any. I'm sure there's so many. I'm sure we missed a ton. Let us know what your favorites are. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about the worst comic book couples. And I had fun with this one because I picked some wacky storylines. And I'm really excited to talk to you about them because I don't know if you know the history of all of them.
No, I can tell you I don't.
Yeah, I've skimmed through this and no, I don't.
There was one, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But there was one that I looked up that was gonna be on my best because of a storyline that I remember. But then I looked it up, and it was like, oh, this is problematic as well. Like this is a weird thing. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I started off with the most, I would say, uncontroversial one. This one's just kind of, I always thought it was weird. Even back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think is when this relationship kind of happened. I thought it was weird because this guy's like 100 years old, man. Yeah. We're talking about Magneto and Rrab. Now, in the Age of Apocalypse era, they were together. And that kind of was its own thing. And then it leaked into the main universe whenever everything was normal again. Magneto was quote unquote dead. And which is one of my favorite stories because it's so stupid. Magneto died, and then this dude showed up at the X Mansion who looked exactly like Magneto. He had long, flowing white hair. His name was Joseph, and he was like, "I am not Magneto. I'm just Joseph."
He had a T-shirt that said,
"He's like, I don't have any memory of that. I'm not Magneto. My name is Joseph." But he could also control metal. For the record, he looked like Magneto. He talked, I would assume, like Magneto, and he had the same powers as Magneto. But he was not Magneto.
No, not
Magneto. he being like a clone or some weird story like that. But the relationship between Joseph and Rogue started there. And then they teased it years later. And I just thought it was weird. You know, he's Magneto and he's danced with being a good guy sometimes, but he's like an extreme version of Xavier's ideologies. And
he's Malcolm X.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate when people say, because I don't know. That's weird. He's like 100 years old.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. He's a Jewish Malcolm X.
Oh, God. So, I don't know. I just always thought their relationship was weird. Just because it seems random to me.
It is. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. For the age gap alone is pretty odd. It's like who is that in Playboy Bunny that got with that old oil tycoon? What was that? And she had her own.
Yeah. Anna Nicole?
Yeah, Anna Nicole Smith. That makes me think of that. Yeah. And I guess, it's fine. Hey, whatever, as long as everybody's consenting. But it's just odd because if it's Magneto in the guise of Joseph, then that's creepy.
Creepier.
Yeah, more creepy than just an old dude dating a younger lady. So.
Yeah. And then it's like the relationship with Magneto and Mystique. Her mom is always kind of weird. I know they've like not together, but.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I forgot that's her mom. I was trying to remember her parentage.
Yeah. It's weird, man. That's just a weird one. And I think that's why I have it on worst. I'm sure there's worst comic book couples, but for me, that's just every time I see that one, I'm like, oh, I could burn it.
Yeah, burn it.
Let's get into some of the more fun ones, right? We're going to start off with Hal Jordan and Arisia Rrab. Now, that's not something that Arisia is not a character that a lot of people may know. But whenever they got together, right? It's one of his early relationships that I can remember, and I think she was in the movie, like they did the Emerald Knights animated, not the amazing live action movie, but I think in the Emerald Knights animated movie she was in that. So in the comic book, she is a girl who just has this crush on Hal Jordan, right?
She's a girl.
Alien girl. She has a crush on Hal Jordan, but you're 13. I'm 30. Let's just say he's 30, right? That's it. Not gonna
13 going on 30.
That's gonna be the end of this conversation. Nothing's gonna happen. Why are they on the worst relationships? Worst comic book couples list, right? Well, in Green Lantern Corps issue number 6, she artificially aged herself up. And she was a 13-year-old girl in a 20-year-old's body, right? Hal Jordan just lost the love of his life, and he was heartbroken. I'm not saying that makes it okay. That is not. I'm just giving context.
It sounds like you're making a case here. I'm
just giving context for the story, right? She, I guess, takes advantage of him in his vulnerable state, and they start dating. She's still 13, though, right? I know she artificially aged herself up. She's still 13, man.
Every time you say artificially, I'm waiting for inseminate. To be the next word.
I'm fighting it.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen or heard about? Sorry, tangent. Have you seen or heard about Poor Things? That movie with Emma, whatever.
Stone. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
It's odd. It might make you. I walked out and I was like, the shots are great, direction awesome, weird. It took me a while to process, but anyway.
I like weird movies.
Continue.
I like weird movies. So yeah, that's definitely. It's on the worst comic book couples because she was 13 and he was like a middle-aged dude, and you would think that the rest of the Green Lantern Corps would be like, "Hey, man, they're aliens.
They don't care.
They don't even understand it. They're like, "What? What's 13?"
Yeah, age limits. Not on my plan.
Yeah, and the Green Lantern Corps is not always known for being the most ethical organization either. Yeah. So, yikes.
They just need to have willpower. They don't have to. Nobody said they had to be good.
The willpower to break the rules. Gross.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
Let me interject.
Yeah.
Only because it's along the same line. So when I was looking for the best couple, I was thinking of these characters because I know one of them sacrificed himself. He had to, maybe it was in an ultimate universe. Mm-hmm. he gave himself like some kind of medication that he could spread to save the mutants or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the storyline was, but it was Colossus and Shadowcat.
Oh yeah. Classic comic book.
And I remember that thing, and it was like the Kirk and Spock moment where he's like dying in the tube, like that kind of thing. She's there by his side, I think. Maybe I'm remembering. But anyway, so I looked it up, and all these articles came up like, why this is a problematic relationship.
Yeah.
And apparently when they started out, it was a similar age gap. He's like 18, 19, she's 13.
Yeah.
And of course, this is in the 60s. Again, just explaining, not really making the good days when nobody cared. The 1880s when she could be 6 years old and nobody give a shit. No. Anyway, but they were talking about the event that it was like they almost died in space, and it's her 14th birthday, and they get back to Earth, and she has like a crush on him the whole time. And they get back to Earth, and they that's when they decide to cement it with a kiss or whatever, and she's like 14. It was like, oh, she's a woman now because she's 14 years old. It's like fucking weird.
Yeah.
The funny thing was a lot of the articles that I read, they were like, if anyone had drawn Colossus to look like an 18-year-old and not like a 40-year-old,
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't have been like as weird, but he looked so old in comparison. So that's why I was like, ooh, switching that over to the worst, because that's all uncomfortable. I was like, I mean, in high school, I was a senior. I think I dated a sophomore.
Yeah.
She was like 16. That's weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. 14 is like,
Yeah, it's just
weird.
It is weird. It doesn't get any weirder than this. I feel like they didn't know what to do with Carol Danvers in the 90s. She was like, she hung out with the Krees, obviously, and she was a big character in the X-Men at the time. She was always hanging around with them. She was around the Avengers a lot. They didn't know what to do with her, and I think this story...
She's just in the background.
I think this story specifically cements my logic, because this might be the worst comic book couple. Miss Marvel and Marcus. Are you familiar with the story of Miss Marvel and Marcus?
Yeah, who's Marcus?
Marcus.
Some guy.
Let's see. It's one of those convoluted stories. It was in Avengers 200, way back in the day.
Centaur?
She has an abortion in that book, I believe. So there's a lot of layers to this one, right? Essentially, Miss Marvel gets sexually assaulted, so trigger warning for anyone out there, by her own son, so that he could be born. Yeah, it was like this crazy story. She falls in love with her son Marcus as well, right? And I don't understand. I need to go back and reread the issue. This is just me going off of memory. And the Avengers, if I remember correctly, are just like, "Hey, man, congratulations on giving birth. You're a happy mother, even though it's the father of your son is your son."
Yeah.
And then she goes into limbo to spend the rest of her life with the adult version of her son, the father of hers. Yeah. So I don't really remember how they even retconned that, or they just like never talked about it again. But it was one of the weirdest stories I've ever read in comic books.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of weird.
Yeah, and his name was just Marcus. Like that's
Well, it's Marcus Immortus.
That's even worse. That sounds like the DJ at a strip club.
Marcus. Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible storyline. Maybe we'll read that issue one day. I don't know. No, this is about as much as I want to talk about that interaction. I think it's one of those things that only gets worse when you read more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Marvel and Marcus. Yikes. Don't ever bring him back. Hope we don't see him in the MCU. That's it. The Marvels 3. Marcus. Ugh. Yikes. Yeah. Now this next one is... Marcus
bangs the Marvels. That's a different kind of movie.
This next one is a weird one, because I love this universe, right? And I do enjoy Bruce Timm's art, even though some people think he's a weirdo. because he does stuff like this. And he likes to draw ladies in the nude sometimes. I don't know if you've seen it, some of his other Bruce Timm, where he's a whatever.
I have.
Whatever. Some people like him. Some people think he's weird. I think both. He could be weird, and I also like the universe that he created.
There's plenty of people that I think are weird that I like, so.
Yeah. Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon. That is a weird relationship, right? And he's like an old ass dude again, and she's like a kid. And maybe the relationship started when she was older. I think that is the case. But also, I think the problem in this specific relationship is that he knew her since she was like a little kid, and he's always been a grown ass man. And so, it's like he's grooming her. Not obviously that wasn't his intention. I don't know. He's a billionaire that dresses up in a batsuit. So
that does seem like that's creepier when you think about it like that. Yeah, definitely like the grooming thing.
Yeah, and I think it's so weird because they hint at that relationship in Batman Beyond a lot, right? Like that was the reason why, or that was part of the reason why Dick doesn't speak to Bruce anymore. And so that was intentional. So it's just, I love Batman Beyond and I love the universe. I just think it's weird because Bruce Timm has brought this storyline up a few times, and it's just kind of weird.
Are you speaking specifically about anything? Because I know so one of the weirdest versions was like in the Killing Joke animated.
That was a weird one.
Cartoon. It was like, what is this even in here for?
Yeah, like you could have taken that out and it would have worked the same.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about in the comic books of like the Batman animated adventures continue, I think, whatever it was called. They talk about or it might even been the Batman Beyond comic book. I think it is in the Batman Beyond comic book, based off the animated series, where they're having a flashback talking about the relationship between Dick Grayson and Bruce and why it was strained. And Barbara tells Dick that she's pregnant, or Barbara tells Bruce that she's pregnant, and he says, tell Dick I said congratulations, and she's like, he's been gone. So motherfucker, it's not his baby. And then Bruce and Dick Grayson get into a fight. Then apparently she loses the baby. She like gets hit by a car or something crazy like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, weird. And I think a lot of people have a problem with it because some comic book creators have been known to like self-insert their kind of things. Not fetishes. I don't want to put that on him. I'm not saying he's like a weirdo creep, but their personality traits in some characters that they write, or some things that they wish they had and things like that. And so some people are like, is that what he's doing? Is he like a weird creep dude? She could be. I don't know.
Yeah, he wishes his children were dead.
Let's switch gears into two characters that I wish were dead. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. This is my last worst comic book couple. You read Ultimates 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I remember being so excited about Ultimates 3 because it was illustrated by Joe Mad. And I'm like, oof, sign me up. Plus Ultimates has been okay. At the time I loved it. Going back, it's very hard to read. But Ultimates 3, again, it was Joe Mad. So I was like, yeah, hell yeah, sign me up. But out the gate, it's just all weird. There's like robot Avengers, and this relationship is really what I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, the volume 3 is definitely the worst because there's like a jump that doesn't make any sense in there.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
So what we're talking about is Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the Ultimate Universe. It's very heavily hinted that they are in an incestuous relationship. There's one comment where they say like, Steve says something like, oh yeah, it's brother and sister love. And Janet's like, it's a little bit more than that. And then like Wolverine catches them doing it in the forest or something weird like that too. Burn it, man.
Can you imagine that with Quicksilver? Jeez.
Burn it. She has like Wanda power. She can slow it down. Yikes. Just burn it altogether.
Yeah, maybe we don't think about the logistics of it.
Why? And that's one of those things. The same thing as like the Bruce Wayne, Barbara Gordon, and Killing Joke. Why even add that into this story?
Because it's Mark Millar.
Yeah, he likes to make people's skin crawl.
That's his whole deal. You talk about inserting yourself into the story.
Yeah.
Like he's uncomfortable.
Yeah, he does make me uncomfortable. And it's like all shock value for the sake of like writing. I'm not a prolific writer, but I will do some shock value so people will remember it.
At the time, I remember, especially like the first ones, I remember liking him and being like, this is dope. Like, this is a realistic take on whatever.
And I think at the time, we were just so used to that campy, Captain America wearing pirate boots. And it was all campy. And then this was sort of like a grittier version before they just shoved the grittiness down our throats.
Yeah. Ugh. Sandpaper.
That's all I got. I don't know if you can think of any other worse comic book couples, but pretty bad ones.
Harley Quinn and Joker, I feel like, are pretty high up there. It's other than Colossus and Shadowcat, just because it's like an abusive relationship, and we've talked about this before, but the way that people idolize the Joker doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all gross, and that relationship is really gross, and anybody that idolizes that has like fucking mental problems, because like that's not what you want.
That definitely would have made my list, or at least honorable mention, because it's just weird, man. Like, I guess I get it for the show back in the day, because it's kind of like the abuse is not as prevalent, even though it still is there, But after a while, and I even though I'm not a huge fan of Harley Quinn, as far as like I like her show, but I don't read a ton of comic books. I just don't like zany characters like Deadpool, for the sake of, hey, we're zany and we're wacky, but not a gross murdery way. But yeah, I'm glad they've kind of separated her character from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Joker sucks.
Yeah, even in like, I don't know, the way that they did it in Curse of the White Knight and all those, like, it's weird for her to have this longing for this character. He was such a shithead.
Yeah. Curse of the White Knight was weird too, because even though she was an independent character, they still made her sort of this like heavy codependent character, because then her relationship with Batman blossomed out of that.
Yeah.
And they bonded because they both loved the Joker in a weird, sick way. That should be on the best comic book couples, Batman and Joker.
Yeah,
they've kept each other in the game for the longest. All right, we're going to round out this episode with some listener submissions. We took to the internet and asked the people what they thought were their favorite comic book couples and worst comic book couples. And we're going to go through some of those real quick. First of all, Eric Larson. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. He created the Savage Dragon. He was one of the big people at Image when it first started. Love the guy. And his Savage Dragon book is a little XXX now. So, yeah, I don't know if it's for me anymore. I do still read it from time to time. And I enjoy it. But sometimes I'm like, I don't want anybody looking over my shoulder while I read it and being like, what the fuck is that guy? But Eric Larson was happy enough to respond over on Threads. And he said, obviously, his favorite comic book couple is Malcolm Dragon and Maxine. So if you're not familiar with the current state of Savage Dragon comics, the Savage Dragon, as we know from the 90s, is gone. His son, Malcolm Dragon, is the Savage Dragon. Has been for a while now. And a lot of people don't realize that because people don't read Savage Dragon. But, I mean, obviously some people do because it still comes out. But do you remember the character Rapture from Savage Dragon? I don't know how much Savage Dragon you read back in the day.
I've never read any Savage Dragon.
It was this character. So Malcolm Dragon is half dragon and half black. So that's really why I read it.
I thought green always translated to black anyway.
Yeah, right? And so,
like the Ninja Turtles.
On topic for this month, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever you listen to this, there was a crossover in Philadelphia with Malcolm Dragon, unrelated to Valentine's Day, but Philadelphia Savage Dragon, very cool.
That is cool. I think I remember hearing about that.
Very, very cool.
Maybe you said something.
And I think before that, I think Spawn had crossed over into Philadelphia. So I really like when they do not silly crossovers, but unconventional crossovers in these Image universes. It works for me for some reason. Next up, we have Guile Cummings, over on Threads. He is the social media director of social media at Skybound Comics. You know Skybound Comics. They create the Energon universe right now. I'm super obsessed about, which is like Transformers, G.I. Joe, that big connected universe. And also, you probably heard about Invincible or Walking Dead and these old stories that nobody cares about anymore.
Yeah.
He said Scott Summers and Jean Grey, and honestly, for me, Scott Summers and Jean Grey can go on either list because
that's true.
Yeah. I like them, but they're also super annoying because they just are.
I think it's the love triangle that makes it annoying.
Oh yeah,
like
we might be revisiting that in a little bit.
Yeah. Jean Grey is just she's a clap having Jezebel. So
for me, it could go either way. They've had a long history together, and it's one of those characters or character relationships that I'm like, if they're together, fine. If not, also fine. I don't care either way. It works and it doesn't. Totally. Whatever you want to do. Zach Norris at ZOSO TMNT.
Sozo. That's a
TMNT.
Yeah, that's a oh my god, Led Zeppelin reference. Sozo.
Okay. I didn't know. Now I know I'm not cool. This is probably my favorite comic book couple that we've seen today, and it's Daniel Warren Johnson and his Pentel pocket brush. Holy crap!
I was looking for mine.
I cannot.
I was like, is this a Pentel?
I cannot agree more. This is the absolute best one. That man is a magician. It's my favorite comic book couple right there. You win. Let's talk about some submissions for worst comic book couples. Harold L. Stokes over on Twitter said the Hulk gang from the old man Logan era. Yeah, very gross. That's another one of those things that I was like, that's just gross for the sake of being gross, man.
Yeah. But Mark Millar wrote that too.
Yes, he did. Huh? Incest. Yeah. Bruce Banner was banging She-Hulk and just pumping out babies.
Yeah, they're like not first cousins though, right? That's legal in Arkansas, I think.
I believe they're first cousins. So gross.
I think that's still legal in Arkansas.
If you're listening in Arkansas, you guys are gross.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know what you and your cousin think. 40-ounce Goose over on Twitter said the Scott Summers, Jean Grey, Wolverine love triangle is the worst comic book couple. And I agree. In the Krakoan age that we're in right now, at the very beginning of it, they just said screw it, and they're just in a relationship together. It's a throuple, which that works.
Hey, throuple?
Yeah, that works.
Hey, I'm all good for it.
Yeah, just make it. Just keep that, man. Who cares?
If you can make it work, good for you.
I think Scott Summers and Wolverine should be on the best couples list.
Yeah, he's the bear and who's the...
Don't get me started. I like that one. But again, that's another... If we're talking throuple, that's on the best. If we're talking about the love triangle, that's on the worst. Jeez,
yeah, good for them.
Those mutants, man.
Way to be progressive.
I wonder nobody likes them. They're weird and gross.
Not the throuple thing. It's the love triangle that's weird and gross. And the throuple thing's fine. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Claude at Curly Insane Guy on Threads. That's a great name. Like, you wouldn't want to see that person in real life. Like, hey, that's a Curly Insane. Over on Threads said Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn. Do you remember that? Do you remember that storyline? It's called Sin's Past, where apparently Gwen Stacy never died. She died. He killed her, but the reason why he killed her is because they were in a relationship together. And she got pregnant, and she had to move overseas to deliver these babies. And eventually, because of his goblin semen, they age super fast.
Well, she was goblin semen. she should have been goblin semen instead.
So instead of being like normal kids and babies or whatnot, they get older super fast. They're the same age as Pete now, for the story's sake. Nice. They have a character, the Gray Goblin. He hates Peter because they killed the mom that they never knew. And the daughter looks exactly like Gwen Stacy, so it's just a weird story, man.
That's the problem with Spider-Man, is that they write really stupid stories like that.
That's
terrible.
The one thing I remember, the whole story is weird and bad. The one thing I remember is just this panel of Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn hooking up, right? And then they show Norman Osborn's face, and he looks like Tommy Lee Jones, but he has like Norman Osborn's waves, and it's just the creepiest image that's burned into my skull.
At least it wasn't Norman Osborn's like O-face.
It would have been better if it was like William Dafoe.
Yeah.
He look. That's what I think of. I don't think of Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
I don't know. I appreciate every
like young Tommy Lee.
Maybe
young or old.
It was
Tommy
old
Lee?
Tommy Lee.
He's
Jones.
always looked old.
Yeah, he's been the same age for the past 40 years.
Yeah, he's just gotten wrinklier. He looks like a wrinklier ball sack.
Yeah, and he just pinches it all back like Homer did. Oh man, I appreciate so many people did comment, but like we could have had a whole episode where we just listed off what people said, and these are just some of the ones that I thought were funny and that we had already mentioned some of them, so we didn't want to double dip. But I do appreciate people that respond to these kind of things. If you guys ever want to have us read some stories, or you have some funny comic related stories that you want us to read on air, send them over and we'll be happy to do that. But I would get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
So love is in the air today. I hope everyone has a happy Valentine's Day. Simon, do you think that relationships are important in comic books, or is it like, I don't know, it's just a weird thing? Because we both kind of hinted at wanting it to be there, but not the focus.
Yeah. I think that if you're creating the characters and you're wanting to create the world and create value to that, like have stakes, I think it's cool to start out that way, but I don't like the back and forth. That's the only thing I don't like. Like, Pete and Mary Jane, they had that progression, and then from there, and then they got married. They finally let them get married. And then from there, they kept going back and forth. And I'm sure there was some back and forth in between, but that is annoying. Like, that's an abusive relationship that they should get out of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, or like Batman and Catwoman. It's like they do the song and dance, and they're about to get married. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're a bad guy. Put these handcuffs on. You're going to jail.
Is that what happened?
That's not what happened. But they didn't get married.
Yeah, okay.
She didn't want to get married to him because she had different views on how to save Gotham by letting the bad guy, by organizing the villains. Batman was like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah.
There's one comic book that I didn't mention that I think, and I don't think anybody mentioned it. We got a lot of Gambit and Rogues. We got a lot of the characters we already mentioned. But one comic book specifically did it really well. And I think the ongoing theme was their relationship in a weird way, is Invincible. Invincible and Adam Eve's relationship over the course of that entire story was a major factor. Obviously, there was like multiple things going on in that book, but that was an ongoing story point of like them being in a relationship, him obviously dealing with wanting to be a hero and also being in love with her, leaving forever whenever she was pregnant and had the baby, and then popping back up. Like, it was just, I think it did a really good job of balancing that focus on the relationship while telling a superhero story.
Yeah. See, I don't know that much, but to me, it didn't seem like the same kind of deal that we have a problem with.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like a good.
And I think what works with that is that it was it's 144 issues, and I think it's one story. We're not talking about Peter Parker in the 90s, then having to also be Peter Parker in the 2000s. You know what I mean? We're not talking about decades worth of having to retell stories to keep them relevant,
Right.
That was just one long ass story that ended. It's like more books should do.
Yeah. It's like manga, man.
Yeah. My favorite comic book couple out of all of them, you, man.
He's got that written. It's right here on the episode notes. He has that written.
That's right here on my hand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the future of the show. And hopefully it'll get tighter and the laugh reel going in the background, so we'll be like a studio audience was here the whole time.
Yeah, this was great. I really enjoyed reading the user or the submissions, so that's cool. Audience submissions. So yeah, when Lex puts out the call, definitely respond. We'd love to read those and include them where we can, because they're good suggestions.
Yeah, if you got any silly episode ideas that you want us to cover, we'd love to do it. So let us know. Sam, where can the people find you on the internet?
Well, I'm Sime_on_toast on pretty much everything, Instagram, whatever. That's where you're going to see my pictures and stuff like that. I'm kind of on TikTok, but not like a lot. I usually just lurk. So that's it.
Yeah. And you can find me at Wednesday Pool, usually on Twitter/Threads, because I'm trying to wean myself off of the X-Bird app. But
yeah,
it's just
Elon.
The chaos is a lot of fun. So I'm still hanging out there for a little bit. But yeah, usually anywhere else, I'm on there somewhere lurking around. So hit us up, let us know, and we'll see you next time.